For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it, or hear it, or feel it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to give you my review for the 1982 science fiction horror classic, The Thing. The film is directed, of course, by the legendary John Carpenter, and it stars Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, Keith David, Richard Masur, T.K. Carter, David Clennon, and Richard Dysart. Now, the film focuses on a research team that is based in the Antarctica. They are set upon by a neighbouring research team from Norway, some Norwegians. There is a dog that runs into their camp. Some Norwegians pursue it. They are killed, the Norwegians, and they wonder what's going on. This American research team wonders what's going on. So they head over to the Norwegian camp to investigate and discover carnage. Something brutal and horrific has happened at that Norwegian camp, and they bring back an abomination of a body. Once back at the American research station, they soon realise that they are being set upon by an alien creature that was left frozen in the ice for hundreds of thousands of years. It has now woken up, and it has the ability to take over any host and mimic it perfectly. This leads to the group of men severely distrusting each other and desperate to survive. Right, what are my thoughts on The Thing? Well, I finally decided to tackle what is, for me anyway, one of my favourite, not just science fiction or horror films of all time, but films of all time. This is a film that I've grown up with. You know, I watched when I was young and it scared the pants off me, and I watched consistently as an adult. It's one of those films that never gets old for me. Every time I watch it, I enjoy it just as much, maybe even slightly more than the last time I watched it. It's an incredible film. For me, there's no debate about that. Now, famously, when this film was released, it was bad timing, really, in a lot of ways. When it was released, it was years and years ahead of its time, because it was completely misjudged when it was released. It came out just a couple of weeks after E.T. was released, so everybody was loved up with aliens, basically, and they didn't want to see this vicious alien in this film, The Thing, tearing apart this American research station. So it was a commercial failure. It was a box office bomb, and very few critics at the time were positive about it. In fact, rather scathing, many of the famous critics at the time, which desperately disappointed John Carpenter, because he's gone on record as saying this is his favourite film that he's ever made. And he's made some belters, let's be honest. So this film really started to gather a following the years following its release on home video and stuff like that. It started to slowly garner the respect it deserved, much like films like Blade Runner and others that were commercial and critical misses when they were released at the box office. And it started to get a life of its own, and it is now rightly regarded as one of the greatest films ever put to screen, and certainly one of the greatest science fiction horrors of all time. It's a masterpiece. There's no faults with the film. I can't give you one. You know, some other people out there might watch it and be a bit more picky. I can't give you any faults with this film. The effects are extraordinary. Still to this day, you could watch a £200 million budgeted film with the best special effects that the world could offer these days, and they would not stand up to the effects in this film from 1982. Rob Bottin, who was only 22 at the time, I believe, when he became the effects guy for this, created something very, very special for the effects for this film. It's awe-inspiring and disgusting all at the same time. And definitely some of the most memorable scenes ever put to screen in regards to gore and horror. Superb stuff. In my opinion, one of the best casts ever put together for a film like this. Kurt Russell, incredible performance playing Macready. Calm-headed throughout, sort of thing. You've got, he's kind of the reluctant leader. He kind of pushed into the forefront. He doesn't want to lead them, but he gets to the point where he doesn't really have a choice. And everybody else has a role to play. And that wonderful distrust that you feel, who's human and who isn't? How are they going to find out? And then, again, one of the most special scenes ever put to screen, the blood test scene. Again, it's a masterpiece. It's a stroke of genius. How do you test who's human? And they come up with this test where they heat the end of the wire and then take a sample of everyone's blood and then put it in. And if the blood reacts, then you're an alien. I remember the first time I saw that scene, you kind of go into that scene, you're kind of like, oh, it's not going to work. And it's filmed and timed so beautifully because he's testing some of them and nothing's happening. So you're kind of thinking, it's not going to work, this. And then out of nowhere, you don't expect it. And it's one of the best jump scares ever in a film. And then what follows that scene is just perfection, really. It was such a shame that it didn't get the respect it deserved upon its release, but I'm absolutely delighted that, if you ask many people, which is the better film, E.T. or The Thing, I would imagine nine times out of 10 people would say The Thing. It has probably stood the test of time more than E.T., and I'm not saying E.T. is a bad film, but it's a kid's film at the end of the day. It's still got its shelf life and it's still very watchable, but this for me is just flawless in every way. The prequel that came out, was it 2011, which was called The Thing again? That got a lot of hate when it came out, and I will probably cover it on this channel at some point. I'm sure I will. While I was disappointed with the 2011 film, I don't think it's as bad as people make out. I think what lets that film down majorly is the effects. They went from practical to CGI and they look awful, the effects, and it just doesn't work. Beyond that, it had some clever ideas in it, and how they kind of tied the two films together was, its attention to detail in that aspect was fantastic. Really, really good. Obviously this is based on some people might think it's based on the, Thing from Another World film that was in the 50s. And you may or you may not know that in actual fact it is based on a book called Who Goes There? And it's more of a faithful adaptation of the book than The Thing from Another World is. Like, The Thing from Another World is a very good film, don't get me wrong, but they kind of went with like the Frankenstein's monster approach. They didn't go with the shape-shifting creature and the distrust thing that they went with in this version. So they are two very different films, but, carry the same DNA, I suppose, if that makes sense. It is worth mentioning as well, if you've got the means to play I think it came out in the mid or early 2000s, there was a Thing video game for PlayStation 2, I think it was, an Xbox. That is definitely worth seeking out and playing. It continues the story from this film, which is really, really good. It's a very, very good game. And it's one of those games I just wish they would kind of remaster or remake, whatever you want to call it. I think that would go down very, very well. And John Carpenter considers this film to be part of his apocalyptic trilogy. So we have The Thing, we had The Prince of Darkness, and In the Mouth of Madness, which is his apocalyptic trilogy. So there's not an awful lot more I can say about this film other than I think it's perfection. It's a stunningly made film. It's chilling, it's entertaining, it's exciting, it's very gory. It's got everything, absolutely everything, chock full of massively impressive performances. Interestingly as well, apparently Nick Nolte, Jeff Bridges, Harrison Ford and Clint Eastwood were all considered for the part of Macready. It's hard to imagine anybody but Kurt Russell playing Macready, but yeah, and apparently Fred Ward as well was, they were interested in Fred Ward for a small amount of time to play the part of Macready. but I think they got the casting just right. And of course, the huge debate at the end of the thing is Childs an alien. You know, the debate goes on, basically. I prefer to kind of just believe what you want, you know, until they actually come out and maybe make a direct sequel and answer that question. Believe what you want. My personal belief is that Childs is one of the creatures, an alien, the thing, and McCready isn't. And I go along with the theory that McCready's breathing and Childs isn't, sort of thing. But also at the same time, there's many an argument out there as to why Childs isn't the alien. It potentially could be McCready. The debate goes on, and I would love you to find in the comments, guys, what your thoughts are. What do you think happened at the end of the thing? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So, yeah, definitely one of my most favourite films of all time. It's a film I've been wanting to cover and review on the channel for a long, long time, but it's one of those all-time classics that are quite intimidating to approach. You know what I mean? I'm going to try and do a few more of them this year. I've done Clockwork Orange, Aliens even. You know, these films that are just perfection. Jaws as well I want to cover at some point. But, you know, they deserve to be talked about, and I really want to get my thoughts and feelings out about these movies. So thanks for joining me, guys. Don't forget to call back on the channel for loads more content very, very soon.